Hey guys, welcome back to another Swift tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you guys how to work with UI graphics image renderers, which basically allow you to render a frame onto a UI image view. So in the last tutorial I explained how to use core graphics, and while that's okay, I believe this is actually what most people should use if they're trying to make custom graphics. So yeah, I'm just going to be showing you guys how to get started and how it works. So I'm just going to call this graphics image renderer. I'm sure there's a better name, but that's just what I call it because that's what it's called in Swift. But yeah, so basically the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create an image view, and yeah, basically what this allows you to do is just render whatever you want inside of this image view. So I'm just going to give it some constraints. Let's just say something like, actually I'm going to give it constraint width and height, just so that we can actually see our image being rendered. Okay, so there's our image view, and now let's go here. I'm going to create an outlet, and instead of calling it image view, I'm actually going to call it the rendering window, just because it makes a lot more sense for this kind of context. So yeah, first thing I'm going to do is let's set the background color to something like let's just say sky blue an option? Oh no, it's cyan, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm just going to set it to cyan, and we'll run it now to see what we're working with at the start. Okay, yeah, so this is our image view, and what I'm going to do is basically render, let's just say a rectangle onto this image view. So I've showed you guys how to use core graphics, I mean the basics, but now I'm actually going to show you guys how to use how to actually render a frame onto this. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a renderer. So let's create a renderer, and this is what I was talking about. So this is a UI graphics image renderer, and for the bounds, so you want to select bounds, and that's actually one thing I forgot to do. Okay, so before we create that, we actually want to get the dimensions of this rendering window. So first we want to get the x and y coordinates. So what you do is you get window x, and that's just going to be the rendering window dot layer top position dot x. I'm just going to copy that for the y as well. So window y is equal to that, except replace that with a y. And the next thing we want is the width and height. So let's do window width, and this is just going to be rendering window dot frame dot size dot width. Or I'm pretty sure you can also just do this, but I'm just going to do dot size dot width because I always thought it was better for some reason. So yeah, and you also want to get the height. And yeah, these are our dimensions. So now we can initialize this image renderer with these dimensions. So if we create a new CG rec, and let's just select this. So for x, it's going to be the window x, the y is the window y, and then the width is just the width and height constraints which we've just defined up there. Okay, now the next thing to do is actually create the frame. So what this allows you to do is create a UI image, and then down here you can actually just set that image to the image view. So I'm just going to create a frame. So let's create a frame, and it's renderer dot image, and just click once and you get this, and we're just going to call it context. But when you're actually working, you should probably call it something like CTX or even just C. I'm just going to call it context, just so it's easy for us to understand. So basically inside of here we create our frame, and then once we've done that we can just set this frame. If we actually hover on this, you can see it's a UI image, so we can just do renderer.image not renderer, rendering window, this rendering window.image is equal to a frame. So we have our frame here, and now I'm going to show you guys how to actually render something. So if I were to run this right now, what you would get is nothing's happened because we haven't actually done anything inside of here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a frame. So basically what we're going to do is let's just first get the rectangle width and height which we want to create. So basically we're going to want to make rectangle width, and let's just say we want our rectangle to be something like 200 wide. I think it's 200 pixels, but I'm not actually entirely sure because of all the scaling things that iPhone does. But yeah, so let's just say it's 200, and let's also set the height to 100. So this is our width and height, and this is the rectangle which we want to render now. So basically, to create it, all we're going to do is I'm just going to create a rectangle, and it's just CG rec, and then we just set the X. So the X is the same as window, so if we just set this to window X, window Y, and then we set the width to rectangle width and height to rectangle height, and then we want to actually set a color. So basically you have to think of the context as a sort of pointer. So if we go to the context and then we select CG context, we can actually set the fill color, which is kind of like the color it's using at the moment. So every time you want to render a new shape, you have to set the fill color, and then you can render the shape. So in this, let's just set the fill color to let's just set it to red. So we have to do UI color dot red and then convert it to CG color like that. And yeah, that's all we need to do. And why are there so many errors? No exact calls to initializer. I do not know why that is happening. Let me just try this again. So CG rec, and I'm just going to like select this one or something, and let me just test it with normal values. Okay, yeah, so that's working. So now I'm just going to replace this with all of these. I think it might be because we need to convert these to ints. So I'm just going to convert this to an int, and that as well. Let's try it now. Yep. So yeah, sorry for that. And now that we've set the fill color, we can actually create the rectangle. So we have to add this to the context. So context.cg context.add rec, and then we just add the rectangle. But this doesn't draw it. How to actually draw it is we do context.cg context.draw path using, and then we just say there's a bunch of options. If you select fill, it's only going to use the fill, and then I'll talk about what the other ones do after this. So this should draw a rectangle onto the screen. Let's just run this and see it, and yeah, there it is. So what the other options do is if we select fill stroke, basically this allows us to get a border around our rectangle, and you can see that there's a border around it there. And to actually customize that, you just have to set it here. So context.cg context.set stroke color, and you can just set this to, I'm just going to set it to green since that contrasts with red. CG color, and if we run this again, we should have a green border. And yeah, and we can also make this a bit, actually wait, that's not very good. I'm going to change it to dark green. Oh, I guess that isn't an option. Maybe system green's a bit different. And you can also change the thickness. So if you do context.cg context dot set line width, I think, and you can set this to something like 5. That makes it a bit thicker. And yeah, so now you can see you have a much thicker line. And one final thing I want to do is I actually want to center this rectangle. So it's a bit of maths. Basically, to center it, you already have the X and Y, which is basically this point, and you also have the width and height. So basically what you want to do is you want to add the X plus the width divided by 2, and it'll get you there, and the same thing for height. So I'm just going to create a new variable here. Let's just create let middle X is equal to, so it's window X plus, and then in brackets, window width divided by 2, and basically the same for the middle Y. Middle Y is equal to window Y plus window height divided by 2. So now instead of setting these to window X, we can actually set it to middle X and Y, and this should actually position it in the center of the screen. Oh, that is not, oh yeah. So basically what you can see has happened here is this point here is the center of the screen, but this rectangle actually gets rendered after this, so we also need to subtract half of this. So if I just define these after I've defined my rectangle dimensions, so we have this, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to put all of that in brackets and then subtract the rectangle width divided by 2. So, and the same thing for this except rectangle height. Okay, and now this rectangle should be positioned in the center of the screen. if it wants to load. I'm just gonna stop it and restart. Hopefully that works. And I'm not sure why it's like lagging out, but I guess I'll come back when it's loaded. So yeah, I'll just come back when this is finished loading for some reason. Okay, so it appears we actually had an error, which was what was causing it. So basically, I'm assuming it's talking about the fact that window X is probably a int. So what I'm going to do is just convert all of these into floats. So it's saying this is CG float and this is int. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just convert this to int. Should solve the issue. Then convert this to int, and this should solve the issue. And okay, yeah, build succeeded. So if we run this, this should give us, and yeah, so you can see the rectangle is centered in the middle of the screen, and that was, we've basically just rendered a frame. And then also notice that the background image stayed there, it was just the image was added on top. So basically it's not creating an entirely new image, it's just creating one which in parts it actually needs, and then leaves the rest of it transparent. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in a future tutorial. Bye.